welcome to edgeofcode.com's series of infinite roller tutorials. If you prefer a written tutorial, you can find one at edgeofcode.com. I'll put a link below to this one. So in the previous tutorial, I explained what prefabs are and how to use them, and we wrote a simple script to generate some terrain. In this tutorial, we'll start writing a character controller and make the terrain infinite. So first, load up your infinite roller project and open the scene if it's not already open. And then go to the scripts folder, and we're going to create a new C# script called rolling character controller, and open it. So this script will be attached to the character that we've created, and we'll tell it how to move. So first, add a public variable int that will tell us how fast the character is going to move. I'll give it a value of 8 to start with. It's public so that we'll be able to change this value easily in the inspector. Next, add a private variable to represent the rigid body that's attached to the character. So it's a rigid body 2D. Rigid body is one word. Okay. So if you go into character, it's going to get this component. So we need to initialize that. So we'll do that in awake. And remember, that's Unity's own method that will be called when the script is first used. So we want to assign rigid, I'll call it rigid body 2D. Actually, that's something that's useful to note. There's a class called rigid body and a class called rigid body 2D. You need to make sure that you use rigid body 2D because that's what's attached to the object. Rigid body would be for 3-dimensional objects. So we want to assign this something. So we use get component type rigid body 2D. And yeah, that will give us this component. So next, create another new method. This one's called fixed update. And this is another one of Unity's own methods. This one should be used when you want to update the physics of game objects that have a rigid body. So the physics of game objects with a rigid body are controlled by Unity's physics engine, and the fixed update method runs in sync with the physics engine. Unity does have another method called update, which is used to update things that are not related to physics, but our character controller is because we want to set the rigid body's velocity in here. So to do that, type rigid body 2D. Lowercase r, and we want to set its velocity. It's a 2D thing, so it's a vector 2 that has this information in it. So we want a new vector 2. The x speed we want to be forward speed that we've created up here, and for the y velocity we want it to continue being whatever it already is. So rigid body 2D dot velocity, and perhaps this is a reason why I should have called it something different, because it keeps thinking I want the class name. Never mind. So this will apply a constant velocity in the x direction. So save this, Control S, go back to Unity and click on character, and then drag this script onto it to add it as a component. So if I press play now, hopefully we should generate the terrain like we did last time, and it will just roll and roll and roll. At the moment it will roll and roll and roll until it falls off the end, but in a minute we're going to make the terrain infinite so that the previous chunk will be deleted, and we'll add extra land here, and as it rolls it will generate more and more and more. There it goes. Okay, so next open your terrain generator script that we wrote last time and add a new method. So we want to add an update method, which, as I said a moment ago, is for updating things that aren't for the physics engine to do. Okay, so in this method, we're going to need to check if the player has reached a specific X position. If they have, we need to reassign which chunk is which. So we'll need a reference to the character. So for that, create a new public variable, game object called character, and save it, and we'll go back and assign that. So click on terrain gen, which has that script attached to it, and then drag the character game object into the slot. Okay. So we're going to create a new method now, private bool. So this is the first method we've done with a return type that's not void. So this method is going to return something. I'm going to call it player reached next chunk. So bool means that this method is going to return a bool type object. A bool means it will be true or false. It's short for Boolean. So to start off with, we're going to create a local variable called player reached next chunk, and I'm going to set it to false to start with, and we're going to return that value. And for some condition, we're going to set that bool to be true. So that the return statement here is how we give the bool information back to the method that's calling this one. At the moment this would always return false, so let's add in something useful. Okay, so we want to know the distance between the player and the start of the next chunk. So to do that, create a variable called distance, and then we want the player's X position. So that's character dot transform dot position dot X, and we want to compare that with next chunk's X position. So take away the next chunk, transform dot position dot X. We only need the X position because it's rolling in that direction. We don't need to bother with the other one. So now we're going to create something called an if statement. So the if statement does something if something is true. So in this case, we're going to say if the distance is more than 0, then we want to execute the code within these braces. So when the distance is more than 0, so when this statement is true, we go inside here and we want to say that yes, the player has reached the next chunk. So we check that as true. If it's not true, then player reached next chunk remains false because we don't go in here and set it to be true. I'm going to save that. And then in updates, we're going to call this method. So as this returns a bool, that means we can check whether it's true or false. We want to say if it's true, then we want to do something else. We want to generate the next chunk along as our character rolls across. So if this is true, so this, what was inside the brackets here, will be either true or false. if it's true, then we'll go into this bit. So next we'll create another new method. This one's going to be called Reassign Trunks. So it's going to be private. We don't want to return anything, and reassign trunks. So this is exactly how it sounds. We're going to reassign each of the trunks. So first we want to keep a reference to the previous trunk. Keep ref to the. So chunk is the game object. Well, sorry, chunk is the type of object it is. I'm going to call it ref to previous chunk. This is because we're going to reassign previous chunk now, and we'll want to reassign something to what previous chunk was, which is this. Okay, so reassign the chunks, so we can use the okay, so first we're going to reassign previous chunk to be current chunk. To see the reason why, as the character is rolling across, so this is previous, this is current, this is next. When we get to the next chunk, we want this one here to be previous chunk. We want this one here that the character is going to be in. It's called the current chunk, and the new one that we created to be called next chunk. So we set previous chunk to be current chunk to be next chunk, and next chunk to be what previous chunk was. And then we need to move this one because at the moment it's in this position here, and we want to move it over here. So let's create a new variable to represent the new X position. I'll call it X position. And create, let's see, so it will be next chunk dot transform dot position, so it will be its current X position plus 3 times the width of the ground prefab times chunk size. So just to show that a bit better, so at the moment it's here, our next chunk is now this chunk here. We want to move it 1 lot, 2 lot, 3 lots of all of the chunks distances. And now we want to set it, so we already created a method for that last time, and we just need to pass in a new vector 3. So we have a new X position, and at the moment our Y and Z are just 0, and save it. Okay, so now we just need to call reassign trunks if the player reaches the next chunk. Okay, so this is all we want to do at the moment. This should generate some infinite flat boring terrain, as the character will just keep rolling. So make sure you save the script and then go back to Unity and press play. and the character should just keep rolling across. Actually, I'm going to go to character and increase the forward speed to 20. And hopefully we'll be able to, there we go. Okay, so as it rolls, the previous one will disappear and be replaced. So this is previous chunk at the moment, and you can see that it is current chunk. Now it is previous chunk, and then next it will be next chunk. So it's still called previous chunk because that's where it started off with, but if we now click on the terrain gen, you can see here that they are being assigned different game objects. Okay. So I'll stop black playing and then save the scene and the project. So in this tutorial we started making a character controller. Next time we will make the camera follow it so that it's not just some flat terrain and then the character disappears off the end of the screen. So yeah, we'll make a camera follow script, and we'll also add to the character controller so that it can jump. So yeah, remember you can download all the files for this tutorial on edgeofcode.com on the downloads page, and I'll see you next time.